You're very welcome back. This video I'm going to talk about why great teams remove friction. This applies to my shooting environment, of course, but it's also something I've seen managing IT departments, IT infrastructure. It's sort of a fundamental. What I'd say is that performance was never increased by working harder. If you have people who are actually working, we'll say at 100%, it's removing the friction, removing the blocks, making their lives easier. That's what I've seen helps teams improve. In my shooting environment, we talk about everything related to improving the process, improving the outcome. That's removing the blocks, removing friction, and that's what actually makes the journey I'm on a lot easier, because the team I have built around me, we're all about progression and improvement, but us working harder won't actually do anything to get us to the end line. So we have to think smarter, which everyone will talk about, oh, think smarter, but actually the only things we think about are related to how do we increase my performance in a shooting environment, where the difference between winning and losing can be 0.01 of a millimeter. So I think I've worked around enough management teams to know that there's always the driving performance things. That's what the leadership thing is. We need to drive performance. And actually what I'd say is that's not it. No more than me focusing harder or thinking harder on each shot is going to improve the performance. It's just not. What I'm actually going to do in my shooting environment is I'm removing the blocks, getting out of my own way, as it were, stop introducing complexity into something that's relatively straightforward and simple if you understand what you're doing. And the same would have been in project management in infrastructure departments I've worked with, where I felt my role was free up the people to do the good work. Don't cloud their day with team meetings. Honestly, anything that doesn't increase their performance, it's a hindrance. Meetings don't improve performance. It's not about effort. It's not about pushing harder. Definitely in my team, we're already pushing as hard as we can, and effort's not the issue. It really isn't. And scrutiny is definitely not something that's going to help either. At an elite level, with elite minds, quality is always a natural output. You don't have to wonder, is it or isn't it? That's what the team is about. That's what the focus of the team is about. That's what the culture of the team is about. You're going to deliver quality anyway. I'd say if somebody is forcing performance, it's a signal. In my shooting, for example, when I have to think more about something, it's because something upstream is not working. So for example, I look down the sight and I'm not looking out at a bull, I'm looking left or right or up or down of it. Well, looking out, we call it sight alignment, where you align the rear sight with the foresight with the bullseye. If that's not there every time, it's because I've done something before that has brought that about. And similarly, when you're in a project that's not working optimally, we'll say, and I say that with a bit of a smile, optimally, you've come to that moment, but it's something before that moment that fed into it, something upstream. I would say that friction isn't always a structural issue. I think it can become a behavioral one. You'll see managers, they like to fill silence, because if they're not heard, people might not even, in their minds, they think they're not even being noticed. Some of them may feel that I have to constantly be vocal around the place so that people know I'm here. Coaches, I've come across some, don't have them at the moment, but I've come across some, even in hurling, in football, Gaelic, of course. I've had some golf instructors, even kayak instructors, sailing instructors, where they nearly need to introduce something into the discussion to make their worth felt. From their perspective, I think it's noise and it gets in my head and annoys me, but at the level I've got to now and the level I'm heading to, I wouldn't be experiencing anything where a coach is introducing noise, as it were, to maybe think maybe in some ways I think they need to feel that they are actually contributing rather than just observing. If there's nothing left to be said, then don't say it. There's a funny thing I was told once was there's only one thing worse than people thinking you're stupid, and that's opening your mouth and confirming it. I actually, there's stuff just springs to mind when I hear that. Um, the process that requires force in my system is not going to work at all. If I have to force the shot, I'm not letting things naturally happen. Also, we call it break. So when I feel that I'm having to force something in a shot, I'll break, which means coming the whole way back out, unloading, thinking about what's happening, and going back in again, because it's a really simple flow. It's a repetitive flow. It's a really simply executable flow in shooting. And if you're forcing something, you're being brought far too much into the present, which is not something that I work for anyway. I work out of subconscious. Literally, my finger will pull the trigger when it's ready. I don't have to think now, pull the trigger. So it's a flow. You teach yourself. It's like changing gears in a car. Do you listen for the optimal revs? Well, sometimes you might, but generally you're changing gears as a flow. And then there'll be someone who doesn't, and you'll hear them go from fifth down into third, and the car will start screaming. So that's the type of thing is when you have to introduce pressure, you know there's something wrong, but it's happened upstream. That moment is a moment of rectification, if you want, and you're better off stopping and reviewing than continue to force things. Um, I would say that the interference is not the problem, it's actually the symptom. When you feel you're under pressure in a project, it's because something has been misaligned. Why is it not going where it meant to go in a shot? Why suddenly you're looking down a sight and you're not seeing what you should see? Well, that's because something has stopped, something has broken. So stop, come back out, review, and re-enter the process. That's where I'd be coming from. If you're working on every shot instead of letting every shot do the work, now you're in a bad place because you're having to guide a bullet onto a target. And the reality is the score at the end of it is purely an indication of how well the process was executed. I wouldn't be someone who supports the mindset of shooting for scores. I'm always shooting for scores, but in a different way. My process is aligned to give me a score. And it's the process is what I'm focused on, not a score. In a perfect environment, when you're working in a precision shooting environment, every shot executes itself when the system's built correctly. You don't drive it. If you do, here's the thing, you've got 60 shots. If you have to work on every shot, you're going to get a different outcome. It's like 60 projects, if you want. Think about that. 60 projects, and you're going to have to work on each one of them because your process is not strong enough to sustain prolonged effort. Not something I'd be comfortable in. Not when we're talking about the precision I'm talking about, where, as I said, 0.01 of a millimeter is actually the type of environment. We talk about small margins. The bullseye is 0.5 millimeter, and there are 10 concentric circles within that 0.5 millimeter, and I have to be within accuracy of the top 5, so 10.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, and 0.9, so that I can actually get into a final. Not even win one, just get into it. An experience I would have worked with was, say a network segment went down, there's 150 users out. I'm running the numbers in my head going, well, we're losing X amount of revenue by this system being out. Now I have a team that needs to learn. I can jump in, I can fix it, but what did they learn? It's all about, for me, it's all about cost benefit. So there's a cost, there's always a cost. But actually, my role in that environment was to give them breathing space. So I took it on my back while the system came under pressure. But within the shooting environment that I train in, it's similar to the network environment that I've seen gone down. You can learn so much within that environment if you give yourself a bit of space. You need to give the athlete and the team that bit of space to think. You're better off asking the right questions than giving them the right answers, because they've learned nothing if you tell them what to do. I was in that room had a really interesting one. 5 technicians. They were early. They'd all come in at into the technical role. They were probably about 6 to 12 months in, and CVs are great, but actually seeing people in a live environment and see how they really react, it was one of those on the ground, on the foot tests, and you could see the different minds going. One guy just wanted to turn everything off and turn it back on again. And for me, that was really a loser, because what he wanted to turn off actually impacted 500 users, not the 150. And I saw the 5 different people standing there with 5 different approaches. And I found the one guy who actually went more like doing brain surgery with a scalpel instead of a spoon. He was the guy who I could see was a thinker, but also an analytical thinker. Similar to shooting, you need to be an analytical thinker. You need to analyze the process, the outcome of the process, and what are the outcomes, because there are outcomes to different shots. I didn't jump in because it was a learning moment for them, and that's what I appreciate about my coaches. They don't jump in because they're learning moments. I would learn nothing if someone just told me do A, B, C, D, and E. And I can tell you from a shooting environment, even the able-bodied, if you try to apply a stencil across all athletes, you'll take 60 in a qualifier. They're all standing on a line, and they'll all have a different element. And the top ones, yeah, there'll be some commonalities. But when you look at the individual, you'll find one person has adapted the system to them so that it actually works um, at a higher percentage of optimal than with other people. So if you tell them about the stance, tell them about the hold, tell them where they should be gripping, how they should grip, it's probably going to turn out where the top level in those athletes, they'll have a lot of those commonalities, but there'll be slight differences. And in teams as well, in projects, you'll find that um, there isn't one rule for all. The output is what I'm really looking at, because to be honest, if I've got people in a team and I've got people who are delivering at a high level, I'm not about to tell them they're doing something wrong. If actually it's at a high level, they've got a system that works around them. It's not about the noise. It's not about me deciding that I know better than them. No more than in shooting. If I was standing beside an athlete, I wouldn't be telling them what they're doing wrong, but I would be asking them the questions that help me understand them, their system, and actually if there was something that I could do to help them perform at a higher level. But it's about removing the friction. In every shot, the less friction you have in a shot, I don't mean the friction of a bullet or a pellet, I mean friction in your process. It needs to be simple and repeatable. I think a lot of leaders will jump in. The ones definitely at the earlier stages, they want to jump in to solve problems, because some, I would think, there will be an ego thing. I've seen it in coaching too, where some coaches feel in rowing, hurling, golf, the whole 9 yards, sailing, they'll feel that they don't feel that there's a worth, or they have a worth, or that they're seen as having a worth, unless they are leading from the front, as it were. Well, I would say step back, let your teams develop, and let your teams know that you have their back. That would be, even that they have their back to make mistakes. I'm going to be doing a video shortly. I've mentioned it before, but it's one that really I do need to talk about, and that's where failure is actually a success. Failing is a success if it's approached the right way. And again, before anyone jumps on me, the caveat is a mistake's a mistake when it happens once. After that, it's a choice, and I don't choose to make mistakes. Um, I would say that a good leader steps back until the cost of not intervening outweighs the costs of learning. So if there's a cost to the business and the cost outweighs that learning moment, definitely the business has to succeed. Similarly in a shot, if I'm in a shot and I'm doing something that the output is going to, the learning moment is not as significant as the cost of not intervening, definitely I'd expect someone to jump in and tell me that there's something else that I need to be doing, or I need to do things in a different way. Um, I think actually it takes a leader, it takes more for a leader to step back than it does to jump in. I actually think the further you jump in, the lower down that chain of command you really are. Um, I work off at three principles really on it. The process executes itself when it's built correctly. That's the reality. I've qualifying at a 60-shot competition, and then in a final, it's everyone takes 5 shots, then 5 shots, and then it's elimination. From then on, you take two, lowest is excluded. Um, but the system is built, and it's not built in Los Angeles in 28. It's built today. It's built last month. It's built last year. And if I have to force anything, a thing I have in my head, it's a little checkbox. If I'm forcing the outcome, something's broken, I stop and I come back out and I go back in again. The default is to hold. I would say that intervening is only when the cost of not intervening exceeds the cost of learning. Making that simple is if the cost of the outcome is less than the cost of the input, then you need to make sure that the outcome is taken care of. So in IT, jumping in, if the learning moment is more important, you stay out. If the cost of the business is more important, you jump in, but you do debrief afterwards. Um, and what I'd say as well is in different business elements, the part of their system can fit into your larger system. So what I'd say is um, operate your process within a framework. Make sure that the process is bulletproof and it delivers every time. Like my shooting, for example, I can only control what I can control. If you can imagine, there's 60 of us on a firing line. Now, my system is something I control. However, when I go into the final, it's controlled by, sorry, in the qualifying, it's 1 hour 15 minutes. And we're out 60 shots. I control nearly every element within that. I have a shot process takes X amount of time. When I get to a final, now it's taken over by the competition, and they tell you to load and they give you instructions and you have to follow each instruction. My process has to exist within that larger framework. If it doesn't, it dies. If I'm going to be led by someone outside my control, that's not something I can work on when we're talking about precision to the element of 0.01 of a mil. Similarly, in businesses, sometimes the project management team, you have to work within a larger framework, but your process should deliver independently of it and even allow the pressure come on from the framework externally and still deliver. I'd say that the cost systems are a lot easier. People are not so easy. Systems are simple enough, by the way. They run. They run independently. If they're set up correctly, they run when you're not there. I've always been a believer in I set up things to run for the day I'm no longer working in that company. It should not be dependent, never be dependent on me. Um, People have always been the more difficult element to manage because people are not the same. No two people are the same, even doing the same job. They won't view it the same. Coaches are similar. Some coaches can see things, some can't. Um, an example I would have had was after I broke my neck, I was sailing and I had a coach say to me, I was sailing a boat called a 2.4, beautiful boat, like it's a mini 18. The coach was telling me how I should be bailing the boat. There was water coming in, which that was just one of the things that happened. Even though we had done an explanation section before I got into the boat, saying, you know, from the neck down, I have challenges since I broke my neck. My right arm's the only thing that works properly. He wanted me to steer and sail with the right hand and bail with the left, but my left arm doesn't work. Stuff as simple as that. It takes a special pair of glasses and a great pair of ears to listen to exactly what the problems are. Um, you can protect the team environment, and that's something I've always done. I've always gone to battle for the teams that I've managed. Um, you can't make people honest about what they really are. Everyone has a different view of things. Everyone has a different perception of things. But if they own 100% of the outcome, that's all you really want in a team. That way they step up to own the responsibility they have within the team. Similarly to my shooting, there's no one responsible for that shot. That's me. That's all down to me. No one owns any part of it. I would say the ones who aren't aligned with the system revert to type. You'll come across this, that when the pressure comes on, someone suddenly changes the way they deal with things. You'll find some people are loose cannons as soon as things go wrong. Someone else is to blame. Temperatures fly. I actually like to see a little bit of pressure because you get to see how people react when things aren't running perfectly. Because honestly, that's when the real work needs to be done. Um, you get to see exactly what type of person you're dealing with. My process, I've got what I call 0 point operating system or 0 point OS, and there's 5 steps in it. One is picking the target, or if you want, locking in the outcome is what I like to call it. Know what you're aligning to. Second one is build a process. So you've got a process that is tested against the outcome. Realistically, running a marathon, I can have that as a target, but there is no process that's going to get me running one. I could do it in a wheelchair, but I can't run. That's what I'm trying to say. So what I'm saying about that is you designed a system that delivers that outcome. It's not a wish. It's actually a mechanism that's going to deliver. The third one is removing the noise. Only discussions around achieving the outcome are entertained. And they're entertained with how to improve, not say how someone else's idea doesn't actually work. And the fourth one is analyzing the process. So I have a process within a bigger process. So a 60-shot competition, each shot is one process, and there are so many steps within it. But I only analyze the process when I have seen the outcome. So when a bullet or pellet leaves the rifle, it hits the target, and that's the immediate outcome that feeds into the larger outcome. So each shot has an outcome which need to feed into the bigger outcome, which is your qualifying scores. But you only ever analyze the process when you're outside the process, never inside. And then owning the outcome 100%. If you own the outcome of whatever you are working on, then you're always going to deliver it. It's a natural thing, and people who don't deliver have never been aligned. I share no responsibility with anybody for my shots. The process that's being worked on, I do share. The understanding of how I shoot, I do share. The challenges that my physical disabilities have, I hate that word, but anyway, I do share so that we can improve my process to execute. But the outcome of that shot is my problem. If it's a good one, I take it. If it's a bad one, I take it. There's a thing too. Why is it people want to attach themselves to their success, but not their failures? The reality is, when I'm doing a training session, I give my coach all the data, the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the reason is, I can't possibly get better if my coach doesn't understand what went into the bad shots. No. Other than that, I just keep repeating. So the questions I suppose I'd ask are about organizational. The companies I've worked really well with had a target, and they were aligned with the target, and I was easily able to align what we did with those targets, same as in shooting. I was never aligned to the appearance of it, if that makes sense. Some people love the inspirational quotes. You look at a website, you'll see the vision and the mission statements and all, and then you go in and work with them, and you go, it could be a totally different company from what they're saying, and it's because there was no alignment. But we love to wrap ourselves around buzzwords. I would say that a number without a process it's a wish. If I get a 10.8 with Sarah 10.9, if I don't know how I got it, I'm not happy about it because I can't repeat it. I ask myself every day, is the work I'm doing measured against the standard or only approaching it? So am I doing everything I can to the level of Los Angeles 28 standing on a firing line in a final? If I don't approach every training session with the same intent and focus, I don't deserve to be there, and I don't deserve to use that word Paralympic rifle shooter. I'd say that in most cases, it's underperformance is not about talent. I'd say it's about alignment. That's from my experience, that's what I've seen. If you want to be a 10.9 shooter, we talk about 10.9. It's the holy grail, if you want. It's like a unicorn. But you have to work in relation to that 10.9. There is really, if you think about it again, the target's 10 meters away, it's half a millimeter in size. There are 10 concentric circles inside that. It goes from 10.0 to zero to 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9. If you want to hit the 10.9, you have to train for a 10.9. And for me, it's not about the shots, it's not about the score, it's about the process that delivers it. And if you don't have a process, that the score, it's literally noise. Um, I'm going to do a video shortly on what 100% accountability actually costs, because I think that's actually going to be beneficial as well. Um, but I do want to do a video very shortly on failure and how failure is not failure. It's actually an opportunity to learn. You learn more from failing than you do from succeeding. Thank you.